Here we go. Ooh.
This might be the first time you read.
Welcome to Books We've Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Jason.
And this is episode 3 of The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu, where we cover chapters 18 through 24.
Mm-hmm. If you haven't watched the other episodes already, we suggest that you go back and do that because we will spoil a lot of things if things are finally happening in this chapter.
Things happen here.
There's a syllabus episode. You can watch that to see the order of the reading. But at this point, you might as well read the whole book because next week's episode is going to be the final one. Yeah. We also want to say a special thank you to everybody who's reached out to us and been talking to us about the book. We've had several conversations on YouTube. We've had several friends who are now reading it that we've been able to talk to about different things, and we really appreciate that. I think it's cool that people want to join us as we do our reading. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun interacting with you in the comments. So please, if you're interested in this book and you're following along with this, anything that you have to say, to add to the discussion or to give us something else to think about, please add it in the comments below.
Mm-hmm.
It's tons of fun. Well,
Just go ahead and get started. Or...
Let's do it.
Okay.
So, you have a new thought. Something someone mentioned to you.
Oh, yeah.
It gives us kind of a different interpretation of the reading.
Someone who had reached out to us had mentioned the three-body problem and thinking of it in terms of like the Cold War with the Soviet Union and the United States sort of as like these destructive suns that are orbiting everything and threatening to destroy it. And that is sort of a backdrop, especially for when she is like younger life, some of the reading that we had last week and the week before. And so I think that's really interesting, and it kind of like ties in my mind, or it's sort of parallel to this forest idea that you had last week that I've really been chasing after as I read. And so I just throwing that there as an interesting analysis that was very cool.
It makes me wonder if Cixin Liu just wrote this as, he just woke up one day and was like, what would it be like if this happened? Or if he actually was considering the three-body problem to be allegorical. And the Cold War part of it actually is in the flashbacks we see in this part of the reading. That's that time period.
Yeah.
So I do have more parallels with the deforestation. I kind of have just kept that in my head, and there's a part in the book where I was like, there has to be something here with this, something related. One other thing, just related to last week's reading, you talked about the meaning of Wang Mao's name, Man of the Sea. And it made me think, names are almost always symbolic in stories. And even if they aren't intentionally, there's always something in there. You're like, whoa, it goes together. But when we look literally, a man of the sea, well, who's a famous man of the sea that we... many of us know from childhood stories growing up, possibly from ye old Sunday school.
Noah?
Yeah, what did Noah do?
Made a boat?
No, built an ark. Yeah, what did it do?
Saved all the animals?
Yeah, but it was supposed to be like, this one little thing that like holds on to a piece of earth while the rest of it's being cleansed or destroyed, whichever way you want to look at it.
And so what if he's like that guy?
So, and I don't know. Or what if it's just floating around that there is going to be somebody who is that guy.
Interesting.
And maybe it's nothing.
You're so good at this.
No, I'm just good at digging for something that doesn't really get. But anyway, so I was just kind of thinking about that as I read, and, what role does he play in this book? And are we going to see him in the remainder of the trilogy?
Well, because so far, like, his only job is to be, like, the mole.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? Like, that's all he does.
And I had a question last time, and that question continues this time. I didn't mention it. Why is he so involved in the investigation part of this? Like, yeah, you're a mole, but, like, in real life, I don't think that they would keep you so involved. They'd get information from you and send you on your way.
It depends.
I really feel like Dash is.
Well, I mean, he's not so much a mole as like a an infiltrator, right? Like I don't know, and like maybe those things are the same thing, but they're not squeezing him for information. They sent him in to begin with.
Yeah.
And they started by inviting him to their secret military club. So like, man, what do you do? So.
How the world has changed since.
Oh yeah, since 2 chapters ago.
Speaking of Meetup, the first chapter of this section of our reading, and this section of our reading is pretty storyline expansive. It starts ending part 2, and it gets us into part 3. So the Meetup, you were really excited about this Meetup as we ended last reading.
Yeah, like all these people are finally getting to meet each other in person, the people that are playing the 3-body problem. And like I'm trying to imagine it in my head, right? So like here you are, you're playing the beta for World of Warcraft or whatever, and you're like, okay. And you show up and you're like at this coffee shop, there's like 10 other people, they've been lucky enough to play, and they're like, there's another planet. And there's people exist on this planet. Do you want them to come here and take control of everything? And everybody's just like, yeah.
Except for these
immediately.
Except for these 2 guys.
Right. You know, so they're like, there is a planet. There are people on that planet. Do you want them to conquer us? And like 8 out of the 10 people just say yes. And you like, do they have big teeth? Like, like, are they clean? Are they rude? Right? Like, they ask nothing. They're just like, they've got to be better than us.
They philosophize through it, right? And then that's when the 2 guys get kicked out because they're like, yeah, the Westers were, bloody invaders and destroyed.
Right. Yeah, the conversation about the Aztecs was cool. And we'll talk about that in a second. But like, I just think about how ridiculous it is, right? I would really hope that like 2 people are like, yeah, I'm cool with that. And the other 8 would be like, no. So the ratio's wrong.
Okay, I also noticed that seemed kind of weird. You had, an author who writes fiction. And typically authors, they write about aspects of humanity that are intriguing and painful but redeeming, and it's all the horrible things that make life beautiful. That's what literature is about, right? She was the first one to be like, no, all these people suck, get them out of here, everyone deserves to die.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What? I thought that was really weird. This whole chapter reminded me, the whole time I was singing the Oompa Loompa Doopity Doo song because Panhand's just doopity dooing these 2 out of the game, and it just cracked me up.
But like, I think I wrote this down in quotes. I can't remember if somebody literally said this or if it was the sentiment. But it's, no matter what they're like, we are worse. Right? Like that is the belief that these people have. Who hurt you? Right? Like what happened to you that no matter what they're like, because of all the aliens that we can imagine, they're almost always worse than us.
And from what I can tell, the world as it is in this book is the world that we currently live in now. And yeah, there's some bad stuff going on. Stuff is really bad.
But there's a lot of really good stuff. It's just dispersed.
Yeah, I don't think that this is send the flood level kind of damages we're doing. It's not time to just wipe everything.
It's not flood time, right?
Yeah.
We're okay.
Yeah.
But these people have decided that it's flood time, right? For whatever reason.
But
to the point where they'll jump on it.
Look at the Gilgamesh flood, and it wasn't just because the people were misbehaving. It was just they were loud, and the god was trying to sleep, and he was like, flood it all.
Support.
You know what the Noah was named in the Gilgamesh flood?
I do. Hang on. I don't remember that. I don't know.
Okay.
What was it?
Utnapishtim.
I knew that. If you went to college with me and you're embarrassed because I don't know that, I knew that. I knew Enkidu. I knew that part.
Yeah.
Did you know he didn't build a boat? That guy built a boat. Somebody built a hole in the ground. It might have been that one. It doesn't matter. Moving on. We might have to cut that part out.
So sorry. I did make a note. They consider the human race terminally ill.
Yeah.
That means not fixable.
Yeah, but it means we got a couple good years left in this. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. I want to talk about the Aztec thing. The whole concept of because that's sort of the story you're taught, right? Like these white guys show up. There's these native people here, and then we like coughed and shot them to death, right? Like, and it's true. But like, what if we? I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah.
But what if they hadn't showed up? And part of why we have this part of the reason we have this like noble savage idea is because racism, right? Like we just like take these people who were less than us and we're like, they must have been perfect, even though they weren't, right? Like it's a problem. Mm-hmm. But what if the Aztecs had made it all the way? Mm-hmm. And what if they had just like conquered and cut the hearts out of everybody? We would absolutely not have that concept. And so almost because it was sort of like nipped in the bud, it wasn't able to become this like mega villain, right? And so instead we were able to take that slot, which is not good either. But it's sort of this idea that like no matter who wins, nobody is good. Yeah. Right? Like they're all bad guys. And I don't necessarily disagree with that concept. But I do have a problem with the idea of I have more of a problem with the concept that there is such a thing as good guys and bad guys, right? Like we're not all bad guys. That's just a thing we made up. We're just guys, right? Like doing our thing. And they thought they were trying to make the sun come up. Right. That's interesting. But yeah.
Right. So, but in Meetup, they do clarify pretty much everything about the game. We do learn, we had this question last episode about the progression of time in the game. And it does progress independently for each player. Interesting. And we learn that it truly represents a place.
Yep.
Tri-Solaris.
Yep. That really is getting wrecked on repeat.
Whoa. That's a big, I kind of just read through it and I was like, wait a minute. That should have been a full stop.
Hey, and do you want them to come here and be your overlords? You just found out there's aliens. You want to show?
I'd be dead, right? Yeah, I'd be dead. So chapter 19, he goes back into the game, and we see the pendulum.
Yeah.
And Einstein saying on repeat that God has abandoned him, and you just can't say that many times without it being something that's supposed to mean something.
Maybe. I mean, they've given up hope. They have solved the equation and discovered that it can't be solved.
But there's nothing.
Right? There's nothing to be done, and their world is doomed. And this is also, I think, the chapter where he looks up into the sky and he sees the stars, but they're all the spaceships leaving the planet.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're just going out.
Oh wait,
no,
that's the next one. That's the interstellar fleet in.
Oh, okay, you're right. Right now they're making the plan to leave the planet.
Yeah, they learn that they have. That's the end of that chapter, or the end of that scene in the game is. Now we have our next goal.
Yeah.
To boldly go where no Tri-Solaris has gone before. I did have a Star Trek dream last night. In that I was in the world of Star Trek, and it has to have come from this book. Because that is the world that I want. That's the universe I want, right? Where we can boldly go and find ways to live in peace with other life forms.
Yeah. But that's not what these guys are doing.
Nope.
And they're not boldly going, they're limping away, right? They're...
Yeah. And when he walks back in, it's oh, sorry you missed everything. We're about to show you the final scene of the game.
Yeah.
And it's what? Mm-hmm. But I guess it doesn't matter because now we know it's real.
Yeah, I mean, they said things have changed, right? Well,
and when you're reading through this in order, you're what I miss?
Yeah.
But then, when she plugs in the missing information.
Later on.
Right.
Yeah. So, that was cool. You get to see the beginning of the fleet. That was neat. But those were relatively short chapters. The chapter talking to Einstein was honestly pretty long, but...
Yeah. How crazy that, the world ripped apart.
Yeah,
and
so...
they're they're dead up there.
The Great Rip. They made their own moon, and for a while there was, a moon bridge of just, trash between them. Yeah.
I do want to say this. This gives you a little insight into my imaginative brain. But as they're describing, when we're realizing okay, Tri-Solaris is a real place, and we're not getting a good description of what they look like. We know that we can't really see what they look like, but all I see are sea monkeys. Sea monkeys are in their little dehydrated package when you buy them and you put them in water and they start moving around after a couple of days. And then as I'm reading it, they turn from sea monkeys into the picture of the sea monkeys on the sea monkey package. And then that turns into the snorks, if anyone remembers the snorks.
I don't know sort of what I imagined them before, but at this first meetup, they actually describe them. When they talk about
reflective.
They talk about how somehow they're reflective, and they have, and that's how they were able to make the computer. And so I guess I have this like crystalline sort of concept of them now. But I also think that it's highly likely that over the thousands and millions of years or whatever it is that these guys were trying to live, that they've probably changed a lot. And so maybe that was just like one iteration where they were reflective. I don't know, but how can you be reflective and you can squeeze all the water out of your body? You know what I mean? Like most things that are reflective don't have water, or they are water, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it could be.
Yeah.
No, doesn't matter.
At the end of chapter 20, as the game is ending, and they're like, "Okay, check your email for a meetup."
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, we're headed to Earth. See you in 400 years." Whoa! This is an actionable item.
Yeah. They're on the way.
This is...
Yep. But, like, you've already said you want them to come, and found out there was aliens.
Why are we not getting more reaction out of Wang Mao? Like, personal thought, like
just
sound the alarm, ding, ding, ding.
He doesn't really react to people very much.
He's like, okay, let me check my email now.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's also playing the game really. I don't know how quickly everybody else is, but he like logs in twice. He like logs off, catches his breath, gets back on.
Yeah, he took a little 30-minute power nap. And he's like, whoop.
Yeah.
Golly. So this puts us into part 3, which is called Sunset for Humanity. How sad.
That don't sound good.
No.
Is this? Hey Nicole, is this gonna be bad? Sounds like it's gonna be bad.
It's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
So we have the Rebels of Earth. And we learn about, this is a big meetup. Big meetup.
Big.
This has a lot of
it's
people.
Like everybody in like
that's
that
like 200
area.
people.
Yeah, it's a ton of folks.
And we have Pan Han, talking about their acts of sabotage. We have an argument come up between the people there about the Redemptionists and the Adventists, and please explain.
Yeah. The Redemptionists want the aliens to come and make us better and like save us from ourselves. The Redemptionists want them to just like wipe the slate clean, right? One thing I was mentioning earlier before we started recording was that there's like no roll call here. They just like all these people show up in this room and they're just like, let's talk about our even plan item 1, and they don't check to make sure the cops aren't in there. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. These people are bold because they're already on their way. Who cares, right?
Well, yeah. So, like, what is there to lose at this point? They're just, everything they do, they're saying they're doing for their Lord.
Yeah.
Who is their Lord?
Some alien dude.
How do they even know that there's a Lord, and why would they call him that?
Well, so in the reading we have this week, there is a line. Well, we'll talk about this and then once we get to like this part where we see the Redco's base and when she, but there's a part where it says over the next couple hours she learned all about Tri-Solaris, and that's all it says.
Oh.
And then it keeps moving. So I imagine at some point we'll have that conversation filled out for us, but it just says like she gets the message.
Yeah.
And then it says over the next few hours she learned everything she could.
Yeah.
And then that's it. So.
So they're arguing about. Someone pulls up like, hey, like. Did you kill Shin? Talking to Pan Han. And Pan Han's like, well, yeah.
I mean, yeah. He's like, I meant to kill the other guy.
Yeah, I meant to kill this other dude, but, it's what happened.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting that they were like, that one murder was over the line.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they reveal that they've been doing acts of massive sabotage on humanity. Like the antibiotic crisis and poisoning the water sources, killing millions is fine.
Yeah, trying to make people just like disbelieve in science.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff, yeah.
There's been all these campaigns to like throw humanity further off course.
Yep.
And then the commander comes in.
It's Ye.
It's Ye Wenxing.
I honestly didn't see that coming.
Like, what the what?
I really didn't see
well,
that
like, I know, it's so just like, as a reader, I'm like, oh, what's she doing here?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
She's the boss lady, right?
And then you're like, well, how did we get to this point?
Right. Well, and there's like some other kind of breakaway leader. I didn't write the guy's name down. But they mentioned this other guy, right? And we never heard of him before.
Mike Evans?
Yeah, Evans. So they mentioned this other guy. He's some kind of like rebel leader, or he's the leader of the Adventists for sure. But so I'm not sure how he fits in with her. But so then they go through this whole thing where she basically passes judgment on Pan-Han, and they kill him.
Just snap his neck.
They break his neck.
Drops it like a hot potato.
And it brings us full circle. Remember a couple weeks ago I was talking about like orbits and how I was like I've been thinking about that and like return and everything. This scene is so sad to me because it's just like the scene where they kill her father.
And how, and now that we have all this space in the book, we have all this time that we've gone through in the book, and we've seen so much of her life, we can see the pieces chip away at her to where she would forget to be empathetic to that pain.
Yeah. But she, like, the whole, like, if you stare into the abyss, it will stare back into you. Like, she has become the thing that she hates the most.
Yeah.
And
I mean, she's a product of her environment.
I guess. But, like, I don't know. But her environment, like, hasn't been all that bad, right? Like, over the last,
there was that really bad part.
But, like, she had a chance to bounce back. We'll get to that in a second, because I have some beef with some of these other things. But, anyway, I just, like, the sadness of what that looks like, like, with her father's death, but now she's the one doing it, right? Mm-hmm. And then, like, those girls screaming at her father about, like, having the right kind of thought, and these people screaming at each other, should we think this way or think that way? Mm-hmm. It's just the same thing.
Yeah.
You know? And the whole, like, at the beginning of the book, you have the different Red Guard factions fighting each other for control of the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have come full
But again,
circle.
I mean, she was created by what she lived through.
Yeah.
How could we have expected anything less? And, I mean, like, and take that into the real world,
Yeah. It's just sad.
Yeah. Anything else on that chapter?
Yeah, so I just wondered, like the whole concept is that these people are sabotaging things, waiting for, like, these overlords to come through. And I'm a big Warhammer fan, and in Warhammer they have these guys called gene stealers. And it's like one alien shows up on a planet and infects a bunch of humans, and they all, like, run around and do little things, and eventually they will, like, revolt and, like, cripple the planet before, like, the actual, like, bug alien fleet shows up, and they think, like, they're going to ascend and become that they're going to become one of these bugs, but really they just turn into food, and they just all get eaten. And that's exactly what these guys are thinking. And so I kind of thought that was an interesting sort of, like, parallel to something I enjoy. But I think that was it for this chapter. And the other chapters are really long-winded, right, about Red Coast Base, and there's a lot of talk about, like, all the sun science. I mean, like, that dude wants you to get it.
He really wanted to lay down that foundation so that by the time it got to, she sent a signal and bounced it off the sun, you wouldn't be like, how do you do that? Like, how does that work? It's all there.
It's all there.
I would like to hear if Neil deGrasse Tyson has read this. He always has good, well, actually, whatever.
But, I mean, so much of this chapter to me is, like, it's interesting, the science, but it's uninteresting as far as, like, progression of the story, right? There's just a lot of...
It's when you put the audiobook on 1.5 speed,
right,
you're like, let's go!
But what is interesting to me, of course, is when they get the response, right? And so she sends this message out and it says... Okay. I mean, I'm lumping a bunch of chapters together.
Right, there are 2 Red Coast chapters together in order. So she does she sends the message, and 8 whole years goes by.
Yeah, and she gets married in those years, and
we see this affection develop between Yang and Ye.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we see Yang's affection develop, and Ye is just a Geiger counter with no.
Right.
Geiger
She's grateful to him.
Yeah.
For bringing him into the base in the first place.
Yeah. But they become bound. He catches her when she sends the signal. He says, "What have you done?" And when he realizes what she's done, he's like, "You can tell nobody." And I feel like they're bound because of that secret. And he becomes kind of attached to her disappointment, and
I didn't really get the impression that he cared all that. Like he cared because he could get in trouble and she could get in trouble. But, like, I don't think he thought anything was going to come of it. He was just sort of, don't tell anybody, and that's all we get.
Well, because it was a big no-no.
Yeah, but just because, like, you could be in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So through those 8 years between sending the message and receiving a message, they, like you said, they get married. And I thought it was interesting that he becomes her access to information. He brings in all these books, and she's reading all this literature. And there's this discussion of like how scientifically thinking she is, and how horrified she is at the horribleness of the world. Like, she didn't realize how bad the world was. I'm like, you lived through your childhood and you didn't realize the rest of the world was also terrible?
Just because of, like, what she's reading?
Yeah. She was like, God, the world sucks. She looked with a rational gaze on the madness and hatred that had harmed her, as she, like, started reflecting on, like, how she has grown from her childhood. And it sounds like she's moved on from the pain of her childhood. But I don't think in reality she has.
But it's that detachment that then lets her get to this point of just like, well, let's just burn it all down, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, I have... Can we talk about the next chapter? Like, can I tie that in, right? Like, talking about the message that we get, you know, because it's relevant to this point.
Well, yeah, we're in...
Yeah, so...
We're in chapter 23.
So we get this message back from Tri-Solaris, don't answer, and then just, like, spills its guts about the planet, whatever that means. We don't know anything else about that. And it just says, you know, we will invade you, we don't know where you are, there's a million stars there, whatever. And she just says, we're terrible, come get us. Come here.
Come get us.
And that is, like, it has to go down as the single most selfish decision in the history of humanity, because she has decided...
For everybody.
For everyone. In her tiny corner of the world. And she's never really seen anything else, right? Because at this point, she's, like, still probably in her 20s, maybe early 30s, maybe, you know? Because she's, like, 14 or 16 or something when she goes to the forest to, like, start doing her thing. And she has seen literally nothing of the world other than what...
All that literature that Yang brought in. And so
like,
much time is spent talking about how much more and more detached she's becoming from life, and how she just loses complete hope, and, you know.
Well, I mean, and like this, I mean, she is still so hopeless in, like, the modern storyline that she's, like, allowed her daughter to die. You know? Her daughter is one of these people that, like, committed suicide. And I think Wong actually asks her.
He says, "What happened to your daughter?"
Yeah.
And she immediately is like, "Let's talk about this."
Yeah, I mean, like, she's willing to give it all up, and it's just
so
because of her own pain.
Quick little non-answer made me wonder, like, what else is there?
Yeah, I don't know.
About Yang. Was that suicide? Was it sacrifice?
Yeah.
Like, what was that? And I have. So, you know, she sends that message, come and get us. She runs out to the park or the green space and faints and finds out she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Cannot be a coincidence that the author set this up. That there's one child over here, the incoming alien, and another child here, you know, an incoming real life from her.
The incoming alien child? What are you talking about?
No, like, so you have the child, her child, this incoming species in 400 years.
It's
the
like
same,
2 births.
Yeah, we have these parallel growths happening. Yeah. And hold on, there was something else that I had. Man. Yeah, so I just kind of wondered about, like, is there something parallel with their fates? And, like, are we going to learn more about her death and
maybe so.
What happened?
Yeah, you might be right. Because we don't know anything about it. We don't know if she saw the numbers that was driving Wong mad. We don't know that anybody saw the numbers besides him. Like, we just don't know.
And he asked, what happens at the end of the countdown? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of this countdown?
Yeah.
There was something else. Gosh, and I guess I didn't write it down, but it had something to do with the forest. That, like, Oh, yeah. As she's like learning about the horrors of the world, she keeps like looking down off Red Coast into the forest that's being more and more destroyed and like lit on fire, and all the birds are coming to Red Coast for safety and.
So that destruction of innocence again.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But as her
innocence is going away.
Yes.
And she doesn't. I mean, like it was already tattered.
It was gone, but like, how did it go into the negatives?
Yeah.
But yeah, the deforestation was also, or the forest was going into the negatives as well. So I thought that was interesting. Sorry, that kind of took me a minute to like remember what I was thinking. Anyway, next chapter.
Well, and then we have the cops coming in, right?
Yeah, Dasha busts up in there.
The
girls are like, "This cool Tri-Solaris diorama I have, it's a bomb."
Yeah, it's a nuclear bomb.
And Dasha's like, "Shoot it."
Well, which is, of course, a problem because those are highly radioactive. And, I mean, so you shoot that and everybody's going to catch cancer, right? Like, that's just... Or die immediately. I don't really know what's going to work.
Yeah, so they do.
Mm-hmm.
Someone grabs Wang Mao out of there.
Yep.
He, like... Dasha, like, sidetracks someone, like, "Got news about your mom." What a shot in the dark, man!
And he just guessed that she had mommy issues.
Like, Dasha.
I really like him.
He is something else.
Yeah.
Something else.
And then they arrest everybody.
Yeah.
Or just everybody. And back to my point about, like, y'all should do a roll call before you talk about your evil plan, right? But I definitely get the feeling that this is on purpose, right?
What's on purpose?
Being arrested. I don't know why.
Them getting arrested?
Yeah. Like they had this meetup. They did this whole thing. I don't think anybody thought Wong was just like up in there and was like good to go, right? Like, Ye has already met him, asking a bunch of questions about her daughter and stuff. Like, that's not normal.
Ye knows that she needs to get to him to stop the nanotech industry.
That's true. Yeah. But,
she mentioned that.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What? I mean, it's already done."
Yeah. I don't know. If it was an accident, they're really bad at this. And honestly, they're really bad at this. Like, whatever. But they're not great bad guys. You know, they don't have great plans.
But they've got big numbers.
They've got big numbers, and there's more of them out there, right? This is a worldwide thing, and there's this Evans guy running around.
Yeah.
But, like, what if they're supposed to have something captured or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
What if it's part of the plan?
Yeah, what if? So yeah, that's the end of that, and our next reading is the rest of the book.
The rest of the book, yeah. So with them being captured, I'm hoping we'll find out some more answers. You know, whatever Ye learned in those hours where she learned everything about Tri-Solaris, I'm hoping we see in the next chapter. And I hope everybody's okay after getting, you know, nuked. So
it was a tiny nuke. It was a wee nuke.
It's enough. So I hope everybody's all right, and then we'll move on, I guess, to the next book, which that's kind of cool.
So okay, you're in the world of Wang Mao.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to be in this world? Do you want to have been in that room? Do you want to have been playing the game, or do you want to be like Wang Mao's wife, who we haven't seen since chapter 4?
I don't want to be in China. It does not sound good. Just generally doesn't sound like there's anything good happening over there.
But this also seems to be happening. It's like you said, it's worldwide.
Yeah.
And like the other governments know something's up.
I'll join the club. I just want to be in Europe.
But do you want to be like
in
on it? You want to be part of the like Tri-Solaris?
No, I don't want to destroy humanity. Right? Like, I might be interested in like infiltrating. I might be interested in helping, like, do the police work. That sounds like something.
So you're Wang Mao.
Yeah, I'd probably do that. If you were like, you can infiltrate a drug cartel, that's a hard pass. But if you're like, you can infiltrate a bunch of nerds, yeah, I'll do that.
A bunch of nerds that are going to learn about an incoming alien.
Well, but they didn't know that yet. Like, they just, like, the moment that Wang Mao finds out is probably the moment that the cops and everybody find out. They haven't had that conversation yet, but.
But that's not when the Adventists and the Redemptionists found out.
You know, the cops have to know. Because remember when that general, that general said on like in like our first reading, he said, remember all the bad stuff that's happened? It's nothing compared to what's coming.
Yeah, no, he knew.
That guy knows.
He knew.
Yeah, that guy knows. I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably go infiltrate. What are you doing?
Man, I'd be all up in this little cult.
Trying to kill humanity?
I don't know. I'd get wrapped up. Just.
That's what we're all doing?
Just, whoa! This is bigger than us. And I just.
We're having a talk after we hang up.
I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I would probably be part of the group that would hold out hope that, like, we could coexist once they get here.
Yeah.
And that, in that sense, I was faithful and, you know, helped them get here, or at least helped stop, you know, the nanotech from letting us escape gravity and whatnot.
Yeah. You know,
what's this moon elevator situation? Or
a space elevator?
Space elevator. Is that so that you can build?
It's theoretically like a tower, so you don't have to use like rocket propulsion. You can just take stuff up elevator style all the way to space. They have one of the most famous ones is in Isaac Asimov's Foundation. They have a space elevator. That's probably the most famous one in fiction, but it's just for moving material. I think that if I were Ye and I got a message from another planet that said we're going to come and wreck y'all, and I said please come, I would then go tell everyone I have spoken with aliens and they are going to come and bring us gifts and immortality and all that stuff, but we have to like purify the world, like we have to be like getting it ready for them and get rid of all this technology or whatever. And I think I would just lie to people.
But because how many transmission? No, it wasn't destroyed.
But like these dudes can't. These like randos in this like, I would just lie to them, right? If I were her, I'd be like, "This is gonna be perfect, and they're coming to save everybody." And yeah, the world's terrible, isn't it? They're gonna make it utopia. You get so many more recruits that way. That's all I'm saying. Plus, whenever you get busted by the cops because you're not taking roll call, they don't know your evil plan.
Man, 400 years. Like, they are coming. They are coming. They're on their way.
Yeah.
That really changes the scope of what all we're doing for the next 400 years. You know, I mean, like, meanwhile, like, as of, like, this, in our world right now, next 400 years, we're waging stupid wars and invades, you know, stuff for no reason.
All that's probably done, right? I would hope.
Well,
it's probably not, but...
Now you're just joining forces to, like, stop this... Yeah. Or not stop, but prepare for this inevitable thing.
You know, I know you know, but for those of you who don't know, there's this concept in literature of like the other, right? And for all of human history, the other has been like the guy on the other side of the river, or it's been the neighbor, or it's been, you know,
but now
people
Earth
of different
is
colors.
United, because the other's off planet.
Yeah, and that's like one of the best things that could have happened to us, right? And there was. I don't remember which president was, Eisenhower, I think, who was like, you know, we need to come together as if there was an alien coming to attack us. And there's all these conspiracy theories saying he was trying to like tell us that they're really out there. But what he was saying was the world would come together if there was this
impending danger.
And now we have that.
Now we have it.
Yeah. And part of me wonders this, like, you know, saying like we should have just lied. It would not shock me in the least if we get to the end of this story and they don't exist. She made it all up. The aliens aren't real, but she has brought the world together. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm calling it here. If it happens, y'all remember.
But that happened.
It's going to be really bad.
I will have regretted reading all of this. Well, so, but it made me think, like, I mean, we do have, like, real others in our real planet, not other people, but we do have forces that like we should be banded together to fight against,
like disease and
global warming.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, but that's the other has to have a weapon, right? Like it has to be a guy with a gun. We just have
There's
to have
a weapon there, man. Yeah. Do you feel hot? What? Y'all not hot?
Yeah, I get it.
Y'all not hot?
I know, but we don't do so hot with that. So.
But that makes me think that just given who we are as humans, if there were an alien, we would not be able to band together against that other.
Yeah, we'd still fight. Yeah, sure.
It just wouldn't happen.
I think you'd see a greater degree of cooperation than there is, but not full.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so that's it, and we'll see you next week for chapters 25 through the end. And then we'll are we going straight into books 2 and books 3?
I don't know. We can talk about that. I have some thoughts on it, but we'll make a decision and we'll announce whatever we're gonna do. I guess coming next week.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. We had a good time.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Please comment. Let us know.
If you have anybody else who wants to read this book, we welcome you to share the videos with them, and they could follow along, and then y'all could have your own discussions, and that would make us very happy. So.
And some of you have been dropping some recommendations in the comments, which we appreciate too. I'm keeping a little spreadsheet going. One of our commenters suggested Hyperion trilogy. We do want to branch, out. We want to read all kinds of stuff, and we want to read some standalones too. I will be in need of some standalones after a heavy trilogy like this.
Yeah. Whatever we read next probably won't be sci-fi.
But please recommend. I mean, we'd love to just have a rolling list of stuff we can pick from.
Absolutely.
So.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Well, see you next week.